Hey, I'm Training Days, and while this is technically a face reveal, I have something a lot more interesting for you today. Over the last week, I put out a series of 8 polls to the War Thunder community, averaging around 28,000 votes each. So the goal of these polls was to try to find a happy medium for what the community and the players want versus what Gaijin wants and what they can actually afford. But it has to be noted that the solution that I've come up with is not perfect, and that it truly has to be a balance. Alright, we'll get to the polls here in a second, but I just want to cover something very basic that a lot of players overlook. Gaijin is a business. They run a free game and they have to make money somehow. And these are the 3 main ways that Gaijin makes money. First off, they make a ton of money around the holiday time when they run 50% off sales on year-long premiums and half-year premiums. The other way is through new vehicles, although they have to come out with large updates. For example, one of the reasons why the Harrier was so successful was because it also came out with Dagor 6.0. So it grabbed a lot of players who had left the game and brought them back to it, while also introducing a new mechanic, VTOL. So the vehicle was unique, the game had a new engine, and obviously it was overpowered, so they sold like hotcakes. The third way is through Silver Lion sales, which are accumulative throughout the year. Now obviously you're not going to buy Silver Lions directly, you're going to buy Golden Eagles and then have them transferred over. But most of the time when I'm buying Golden Eagles, I am buying them to have them transferred so I can purchase the vehicles or continue playing the vehicles that I enjoy. Now while that is annoying, it's very important for Gaijin, because if you look at this, they get premium sales, a big check around holiday time, and then they have to put a lot of money and a lot of effort into these new vehicles around big updates. Silver Lion sales are the only thing that they can rely on to have a constant money flow between the major updates and between holiday times. Alright, I'm going to erase this, but just keep this in the back of your mind because it's very important as we move on. As I said before, I started these polls because I was curious about my community, so of course the first question was, what is your favorite mode in War Thunder? Now while it surprises no one that there's only 4% naval, it does surprise me a little bit that there's only 36% air forces. I was thinking that this was going to be a 50-50 split, but ground forces clearly beat out air forces, although it is important to note that 75% of the community enjoys realistic over arcade. There are 2 things that I took away from poll number 2 that aren't as obvious on first glance. One of them is that people fucking hate the grind. They despise it. I'll show you all these comments, all these angry comments, and people calling others psychopaths for enjoying it. And to be honest, I thought that there would actually be more people who enjoyed the grind. I am not someone who does, but I hear people all the time who do. The other thing that I took away is that only 5% of people in the War Thunder community enjoy modern vehicles. And I think this is a combination of 2 things. One, the maps in War Thunder are simply not designed for modern combat, and they do not play well. The other reason I think is just that players really don't get to experience top tier, because for many of them, by the time they've reached that point, they're already burnt out from the game and they don't want to play it. Now the obvious takeaway of poll number 2 is that 56% of players play War Thunder because they either enjoy the semi-historical aspects or the semi-realistic aspects. The question for me then was, which one do they enjoy most? Okay, we're going to skip around here to poll number 5 because it answers the question I just asked pretty well. This poll is a little bit weird because option 1 and option 2 were pretty much the same thing, just worded a little bit differently. Although it's clear that players enjoy the realistic aspects well over the historical aspects, with historical only going for 7% of the vote and realistic going for 81%. In summary, we play this tank game because it's not World of Tanks and there's no other option. And here's where we started getting into the answers that I was extremely surprised by. For poll number 3, I asked, in the future, would you approve of Gaijin adding prototype or paper vehicles to War Thunder? And the answer was a resounding yes. Now this is a question that's been floating around the community very strongly for about a month now, with both Phlydaily and Spookston making a video on it, and I will be referring to them later. Now it is important to note that War Thunder is not a completely pure game. Vehicles such as the Panther II were only conceptual, and the mouse was never fully operational. But we'll talk more on this later. Poll number 4 asked what would make War Thunder a better game, and I really wish I had asked this question before the new power update, because as of right now, only 3% of players want new effects. But the thing that really surprised me about poll number 4 is that people want new game modes significantly less than they want the maps to be redesigned and separated by tier. What I mean by maps being redesigned, it's not necessarily that we need new maps, because I think the maps that we have now are pretty solid. It's just that as the tiers go higher, the vehicles start to get faster, their firepower gets to increase, and their armor really only works at range. And that's what the vehicles are truly designed to fight at. Here's what I mean by this. So let's say that this is a current map that we have now. We'll average this around 1.5 to 3 kilometers in distance. And then let this signify the airspace around that map. The current maps that we have, with exception of like Vietnam or the Maginot Line, should stay for tier 1. But as the tiers start to increase, let's say that this is tier 1, this should be tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, and on and on and on. I think that this type of map rework is what players really want. Because if you look at it, the average range of what a tier 1 vehicle is probably 2/3 of this base map. In contrast, we have an Abrams tank that could shoot this pen out of my hand from 3 kilometers away. Now, it might take my hand with it, but the point still is that it would hit this range from 3 kilometers away. So if this entire map is 3 kilometers and the effective range is so pinpoint, then everyone gets one shot, the armor doesn't work, and the vehicles that you've grinded for years to get do not function as intended. Top tier does not work right now, and the rule needs to be that the tank should be able to shoot effectively from 2/3 through the map. It can lob shells the whole distance, but it probably won't do anything and you probably won't be accurate. This is my solution. It's pretty basic, but it's going to take a lot of work to implement. And I truly don't see any other way that Gaijin would fix this problem. Because having a T-62 drift around a corner getting a 360 no-scope headshot collateral is just not what modern tanks were made for. Moving on to poll number 6, and these options were suggested by the comments on poll number 4. I asked, which of these changes to War Thunder do you want to see most? Now this one was definitely the closest of all the polls, although it's very, very clear that players want economy fixes the most, and more specifically, a complete overhaul to the repair cost system. And because the poll is so close, it's also important to mention that 27% of people who voted want a shortening of the grind. Now here's the whole thing with Silver Lions again, because both repair costs and a shortening of the grind ties in drastically to Silver Lions and the economy system. But the fact of the matter is that we are not supposed to enjoy the grind. We are supposed to have 2 options: either take years of our life and thousands of hours to grind to top tier, or to pay our way through it. Now I'll get back to this a little bit later, but it is very important to remember the 3 ways that Gaijin makes money. Now number 7 is a revote because, as I said before, YouTube only allows 5 options, and I wanted to include Sim in a poll asking what is your favorite mode in War Thunder. And to my absolute surprise and such happiness, it actually came out 3% higher than Naval. Now these results might be slightly skewed because I have a mostly Sim community. However, it is very important to point out that queuing for a ground Sim match typically takes less time than queuing for an average Naval game. Now while we're not completely finished with the polls yet, the problem is making itself very, very clear. Players are unhappy and unsatisfied because they hate the grind. So either they spend hundreds of dollars or they spend hundreds of hours grinding to get the vehicles that they enjoy. When they get those vehicles, they realize that the repair costs are so astronomically high that it's making them bankrupt through Silver Lions anyway. So they're still having to pay money just to play those vehicles that they like. And God forbid those vehicles are in the very top tier because the gameplay is so poor that they're probably just gonna give up after a few hours anyway. This is both a problem for us and a problem for Gaijin because once we're gone, we're not paying. So then what is the solution to this? Well, we see that the community wants lower repair costs, maps redesigned and separated by tier, a shortening to the grind, and the maintainment of realistic and or historical aspects. To figure out what Gaijin wants, we have to look back at that 3 ways that Gaijin makes money. So of course, by looking at this, you can tell that they want us to continue buying premium, they want us to buy the new vehicles when they come out, they want us to buy Silver Lions, and in addition to this, they also want us to keep the maps and keep the modes that are in the game currently, so they don't have to spend money developing them. And as I said in the very beginning, the solution that we come up with has to be a balance. So looking back at what the community wants, you can tell that by lowering the repair cost and by shortening the grind, that decreases the amount of Silver Lions that we have to buy in order to play the game. So Gaijin loses money in this case right here. They also lose money because we want maps to be redesigned and separated by tier. And in order to do that, they have to spend money developing new maps. Now this right here is a very large chunk of the Gaijin wallet, because buying Silver Lions is the only way that they make money accumulatively throughout the year. I still can't say that word. So the solution to this would be that Gaijin would add prototype and or paper vehicles to the game, a move that 82% of the community would approve of. This would require us to spend money on new, unique vehicles or vehicles that fill text trees. Here's a quote from the recent Phlydaily video on this subject.
Players are here to get new stuff. Majority of them. If there weren't any new things to get in War Thunder, this game would drop drastically, in my opinion. Just because there's no new gimmicks, there's no new power creep, there's no new weapon system, and the game will get stale quickly because the games will be the same, the vehicles will be the same, and there's no drama. We love drama. I'm just saying, with the way War Thunder is run and the way War Thunder does business, it wouldn't last too long at all.
He goes on to explain that if Gaijin is to continue making money for this game, that adding prototype and or paper vehicles are the only way to do it. Now, it's kind of sad to me as a sim player is that doing this will obviously sacrifice any historical aspects that are left in this game, and maybe even some of the realistic ones if it comes down to that. Although Spookston, a content creator who's just hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, had a very good idea for keeping prototype and or paper vehicles grounded in reality.
Fourth, the vehicle has to use some components that are actually constructed, whether that be the engine, gun, or whatever. Just something to ground it in reality a bit. In the case of minor nations, fictional vehicles should be used to fill gaps in tech trees. Either that, or they should be used as premiums. For nations like the US, fictional vehicles should be used as limited event vehicles.
Now, I will repeat again that this solution is nowhere near perfect, and honestly, it would personally disappoint me, a sim player who likes to fight aircraft that are historically accurate in a historically realistic setting. I would be one to enjoy a game mode where we got to escort C-47 paratroopers on D-Day. That would be my dream for War Thunder, but obviously it's heading in another direction. So with this happy medium being both the conclusion and the solution, I came out and asked the community what they thought of this idea. And it was nothing but a booming, deafening yes. Now in this poll I did say that Gaijin would slash repair costs. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's even logical. But it should be something around a 60% reduction in repair costs for most vehicles. What if I told you that there was actually a wild card in this situation? A monetization system so new, yet so effective that it could single-handedly bring down the reign of Silver Lions. What I'm talking about is the dreaded Battle Pass. Wow, this is really bad. Yeah. Those are both T's, and that says Battle Pass. Now look, just hear me out. Battle Passes can make or break games. They can be done very, very well, or they can be pay to win. Currently, Gaijin just tried one of these, and it was terrible. You hit level 15, I think, and you got the Matilda Hedgehog, and that was about all that was exciting, and then it was just free bits of currency that you could spend in the store, and it just wasn't all that exciting, and it took forever to grind. That was not well done. But if they come out with like skins and just a better thought out Battle Pass with cool vehicle unlocks at the very end and make it a lot less expensive than it was this time around, I think the Battle Pass has a lot of potential. And just like War Thunder itself, the potential is kind of being wasted right now. If done right, a monetization system built around the Battle Pass will be more secure and more accumulative than anything Gaijin has ever done. Now, obviously, creating a Battle Pass costs time, development, and money. And Gaijin, I think right now, is more willing to make us suffer and make us pay for Silver Lions than to take the time to create a good Battle Pass. Now, the good thing about this is that not only does it give players who continuously want that grind something to work towards, but it also has the potential of not allowing the introduction of paper vehicles because we will not then have to buy them because Gaijin will actually be monetized and that money will be made up by the Battle Pass. Look, prototypes are inevitable, but for people like me who like historical battles, I think that the maintainment of historical battles or semi-historical battles, fuck the R3, are very important, and if the Battle Pass could come in place of paper or prototype vehicles, I think it should be. I hope you guys have learned something today, and look, I'm not a game developer, I'm not even a legal adult, but I think this is the first time that something like this has been done, and something needs to change within War Thunder to make it a more desirable and to make it a more happy place and a better game for us to play. So Gaijin, if you are listening, please take this seriously. Because this is not the opinion of me, or the opinion of any individual. But this is the War Thunder community speaking directly to you. Do I think things will change? Possibly. But not quick. Gaijin plans years in advance and are probably 5 steps ahead of me right now. But if they are stepping in the wrong direction, then this damn sure better correct them. Because we as a community will not take much more of this. I'll catch you on the next one. Adios.